So far, so good.
Yeah, well, you know, that's like just your opinion, man.
There we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Canadian edition. Not really, just a different edition. Brian Maddox is not here today, so I have to take over the hosting job today, and we'll see how it goes. So as usual, everybody gets to have an opinion. Everybody has to talk, and we're going to talk about audio stuff, which is all we ever want to talk about. Start off with our poll, and a little different than Brian's poll because, hey, Brian has his thing, I have my thing. So those of you sitting at home can't read our poll. We're asking everybody today, what is the greatest Canadian TV show of all time? Is it SCTV? Is it Celine Dion and Friends? Is it Letterkenny? Or is it the Trailer Park Boys? I don't expect everybody will even know what some of these things are, but we'll have looks like we actually have a winner. So ending the poll here and sharing the results. Looks like SCTV has been voted to be the greatest show, Canadian show of all time. I have to agree. It was a fantastic show, which I grew up on. I don't think it came to the US though until it started to get very, very popular. I don't know which way it went, whether it was popular when it got to the US or got popular and then went to the US. What do you think, Ike? Do you think it was popular first and then went to the US?
Probably. But the interesting thing is now is that son of SCTV just had the most popular show anywhere, which was Schitt's Creek. And
yes,
so Eugene Levy was on SCTV, and his son is the brains behind Schitt's Creek, I think, and it conquered the world. So
it has. Yeah, well, I forgot to put that one on the list.
Yeah, but boy, there was some great stuff on SCTV. I still reference a lot of those bits actually, which is, I think probably in this situation here probably helps to contribute to my, possible reputation as a raving lunatic. But you got to take what you get. So.
No doubt.
Doug and Bob McKenzie alone just won.
I can't believe that somebody actually voted for Celine Dion and Friends, a non-existent show. But if you watched South Park, you obviously know where Celine Dion lives. Okay, guys. So we got let's do a topic for today. The second poll here. So I got some different subjects for those of you who can't see the polls at home. We're going to say, what band puts on the best concert? So do you prefer all-in-one console DSP, all-in-one piece of equipment, or do you like the separate console with a separate DSP, like a control console and DSP? External word clocks, do they do anything? Are they for real? Are they just a gimmick, or is there something to it? And then the idea of steering sound using DSP in a PA system. There's a few new products out there. This idea has been around for a long time of steering a PA using just DSP processing through drivers. But I'd like to hear anybody's opinion about whether that's a real thing or whether it doesn't work. Okay, so we've got everybody voted so far, looks like. End the poll and share the results. Okay, interestingly, we have a three-way tie.
It looks like we're going to talk about all of them.
Yeah. Well, no, I think we should talk about what band puts on the best concert with a single console, no external rack, while steering the sound. I think that's pretty much what we're going to do.
Well, the rule Brian told me was that since Brian and I can't vote, I have to be the tiebreaker here. So I guess I get to
I
pick.
thought that was Kamala Harris.
Huh? Oh, she's a tiebreaker.
You must have voted because it evenly divided 3 ways.
Yeah, 6 out of 7, it says. So I see 1, 2. Oh, there's a couple. There's one person that's not showing up in video. So that's why. Oh, actually, 2 people not showing up in video. So there is actually 7 of us, maybe 8.
You know what? This is the Canadian show, Andy. We should just talk about the weather. You know,
Maybe they should.
really.
I want to talk about,
or whether it's like a sale on a Tim Hortons or something like that. This audio stuff, I think we've taken it as far as we can go.
Yeah, you're probably right.
The first question was a veiled attempt of you all to talk about Rush.
That's right.
No, I was going to say Barenaked Ladies. Come on.
Very good. Very good. You know what? We are going to talk about the best concert. And, being in the audio world, let's, focus a little bit on the reason that the concert was the best. It was possibly had something to do with the sound. Let's hope that we don't pick Kiss just because they have the most makeup and the most flashbulbs, but maybe, that's your thing. Okay. So I'm going to start by saying I haven't seen a lot of concerts, unfortunately. Usually I'm working whenever they go on, and I kind of regret the fact that I didn't take enough time to go and see some of the concerts. And I've been told by people about concerts that were amazing, like Peter Gabriel, when he did the In the Round show called Secret World. Everybody just raved about that one, how amazing it was. And of course, it came to my town. I was working, but I should have just said, screw it, I don't care, I got to go.
I challenge anyone to beat my list of concerts I didn't see for $2.50. High school, we had Cream, we had the Yardbirds, we had the Doors, we had the Animals, we had Sly and the Family Stone. We had, those were the ones while I was there. But
and how many of them did you see?
None. Not a one.
Not a one.
Not a one.
Isn't that annoying?
I was a gearhead at the time. Music wasn't my thing. I mean, really still isn't, but I was, but I would have gone to those concerts in retrospect.
Well, living in Canada, we didn't get some of the bigger names all the time. I know people in the US who lived in sort of California or LA or something like that. They talked about seeing Genesis. They talked about seeing, all these 70s bands that I really love. And they just never came to my town. They weren't around in the little town that I lived in or anywhere nearby. So unfortunately, I missed out on some ones, but I'm going to have to say the best concert I saw was Supertramp, sound-wise, and I was just young at the time, but I do remember Big Martin, PA. This is Supertramp Breakfast in America in Ottawa, and Big Martin, PA, but live acoustic grand pianos, 2 of them on stage, and I'd never heard a piano that loud or that full, that sounding like a real piano. And pretty impressive, a big, huge sound. And of course, lighting wasn't really a big deal for a band like that, but I'm pretty sure that a band like Supertramp had their own sounds together on stage. And as I said, it's the first time I heard Martin
very
PA.
conscious. They were very conscious of sound. That album was one of the best sounding albums of the time. I mean, that they were way ahead on sound quality.
Well, Crime of the Century was like the album you put on to test the system and to impress your friends with the stereo. And one of the most,
unless if you didn't have Dark Side of the Moon
or Steely Dan Aja.
Yeah. One of the most impressive things about Crime of the Century was how quiet it was. Like the silence when, like with just those piano chords with the reverb kind of ringing out and everything, nothing else there. It sounded like they were playing it in outer space, and that was very impressive. Anyway, you were saying.
No, I think that's it. I gave you my best. I think if we have time, maybe we'll go back and talk about our worst, which might even be more interesting. But Ike, you have the floor. What was your
Well,
best concert?
much like Mac, I managed to avoid some really great, like, legendary shows. And one example is when I lived in Prince Edward Island, which for you Americans is the smallest province in Canada, and a bit of a backwater. I had a couple of friends that ran the Kelly's record store in the mall, and these guys, by using their virtually unlimited store buying powers, had the greatest record collection that you could possibly imagine. And they introduced me to the Police in 1978 or so.
Ooh,
So 1979, I moved to the Toronto, and I'm flipping through the paper one day, and I see an ad that says the Police at the Edge, and I somehow knew, and I don't know how I knew this, but I knew that the Edge was like a little club, very little club. And I went, oh, it can't be that Police. They have a record deal. They wouldn't be playing at that little club. And so I didn't go. And they played at that little club, and it was the first time that they played in Canada, and there was something like 18 people in the club, and it's legendary. That show was legendary for the fact that they didn't care that there was 18 people in the club. They just blew the doors off the place. So I talked myself out of going to what would be, one of those I was there kind of shows. But wow. I would have to say that, I mean, I guess the question is it really, are we talking about what was some of the greatest concerts you've ever been to, or what's a great band that always puts on a great show? If it's the latter, I'm quite fond of the Barenaked Ladies. I've done all kinds of gigs with them where I've been working in some capacity, but I've been entertained every single time. And they are just total professionals. They just, their crew is a delight to work with. Everybody from management on down, they just take good care of their people, and they give the goods every single time.
And like Rush, they don't take themselves so seriously. They can joke around. The show is funny in itself.
We are the plumbers that fix your kitchen sink. I actually know the origin of that Rush line is in the tour in 1984 or whatever it was called. They had some kind of major problem that held up the start of the show for like an hour and a half or something like that. And when they finally got on stage and got to that, we are the priests of whatever, Getty sang, we are the plumbers that fix your kitchen sink. And it was a reference to the fact that it took 90 minutes to get the show going. So I think I that's what I heard at the time from people that were there, but I don't know their music well enough to know if that's in the song all the time. So
B&L always sounded good when you saw them.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, B&L always sounded good whenever you saw them.
Yeah, absolutely. Robin Billington, their front of house guy, is a very, very skilled engineer, and they care deeply about it. They've always made sure that they had enough of their own kit to provide a consistent show. Two other shows come to mind that really, really impressed me. One of them was Leonard Cohen on his last tour at saw them at I guess a Cops Coliseum in Hamilton, and a friend of mine was mixing. And actually, I knew most of the people on the crew, I guess. It was the closest thing to a perfect show in every respect that I've ever been to. I mean, it was not loud, but you could hear every single instrument. My wife and I were on the floor about probably, 10 rows back from center stage, good seats. And I mean, if someone would, if somebody held up a little percussion thing or anything, when you looked, you saw what you were listening to, and it was phenomenal. And the other show that comes to mind is Ben Harper, Welcome to the Cruel World tour at Massey Hall in 1998, probably. It was for us, the company I was managing at the time, Westbury. It was a one-off system. They used our EV 1183 rig, PM 4000 effects rack. That album, the Welcome to the Cruel World album, is an album that if you're not using it to listen to PA systems and stuff, you should definitely add it to your list. It's incredibly well recorded, and the show was every bit as good. I would say the best concert I've ever heard in Massey Hall.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dave? I see you nodding your head a little bit, but do you have a different concert you're thinking of?
Well, I don't know. For me, the question's kind of very broad. So the show that really got me interested in audio was Rush. It totally was, to stay with the Canadian theme.
You don't have to.
It's okay. It's true. Robert Scoville was mixing, and I've seen them. I saw them every show since Hold Your Fire. So that was 87. And it just totally impressed me. I mean, Ike, you said Barenaked Ladies. I've worked with them many times as well. I saw them when I was in college, and they were on their Maybe You Should Drive tour. They came to St. Louis. Nobody in the States knew who they were at the time at all. And they played a 200-seat club in St. Louis, and I got to see them there, and it was an absolute blast. And then worked with them since then.
The 200-seat club in St. Louis, did everybody bring a big wad of $1 bills to see Barenaked Ladies?
Just about, yeah. Unfortunately, they did everybody there did the whole If I Had $1 Million, where you toss the Kraft mac and cheese. They had opened up all the cheese packets, so there was orange cheese dust in the air, and in a small little 200-seat club and tons of it, you're just breathing it in. You're blowing your nose like with just orange cheese dust. It was disgusting, but it was a great fun show. I'm
pretty sure that orange cheese dust is like asbestos.
It kind of is. Yeah, it was very disgusting. It was, all over your clothes and everything else, but it was an absolutely fun show because who gets to see the Barenaked Ladies in a small little tiny club like that? It was an absolute blast. So from an audio standpoint, I would really have to say Rush, because it left such an impression on me. And I've always found it really interesting when you can take a band like that and you put them behind a big PA in an arena, and there's lots of panning and other stuff going on. And when you see audience members' heads all turn at the same time, and it's just one of those little things that to me, it says, okay, audio is actually moving the audience in one way or another. And so it was very impressive. And that's what got me on this ill-suited career.
Have you watched those videos? This YouTube series of the crew talking about how they set up the PA, how they run the lights, how they do the video. There's like a different YouTube for each department. Have you watched those videos?
From Rush? Yeah. I know Brad Maddox and Brent Carpenter. And Brent's now actually front of house for Pentatonics, and Brad was currently doing Sarah Bareilles, which is another great artist. So yeah,
who recorded an album here in Toronto. I don't know if she's from here or not, but I know that she recorded at Canterbury Recording here.
I don't know actually where she's from.
Well, since everybody went with Canadian bands, I'm going to go with a Scottish band, David Byrne. I didn't ever get to see any of the Talking Heads great shows at CBGB, although I was in New York at that time and could have. Once again, I wasn't a concert goer, and I blew off some of the greatest experiences that I regret to this day. But I did go see American Utopia just before COVID, and it may be the best live show I've ever seen. Hopefully, when we get out of COVID, he resurrects it and takes it back out on tour. It toured before it went to Broadway, and then it did a fairly long run on Broadway, and then had to close because of COVID. But it wasn't the Talking Heads, but they played a few Talking Heads songs. But the band was completely deconstructed. So there was 12 band members and 2 backup singers who were also dancers. But pretty much everybody had a vocal mic on. There were 12 instrumentalists, David Byrne, 2 dancers, and 76 wireless mics. There was not a wire on stage. The entire band was wireless. Every instrument was wireless. And 6 of the players were percussionists who played the drums, but they each only played one drum. And if you want to see something amazing, you should watch them play Burning Down the House.
Wow.
There's a video
player gets one drum.
You can watch this on video. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a
I think I saw it on Netflix or something.
It was I thought it was HBO actually.
Okay.
Unbelievable show.
Makes me think of Stop Making Sense, one of my favorite concert videos too.
Yeah. Again, fantastic concert video.
Andrew, there's also a
Shoot
concert
myself
video
that I wasn't
of the
there
Secret
live.
World tour.
Oh yeah, I've got the DVDs. Believe me. And the disappointing thing about that show specifically is that's when Peter was at his best. He hadn't actually gotten to the point where he couldn't sing the notes anymore. He could still hit the notes, and every concert after that, he couldn't hit the notes anymore. That's why it was so disappointing that I didn't see him. And that's the same situation for so many of my favorite artists, is that they've passed their prime, and then all of a sudden you don't want to go see them after that point.
I had a funny thing with that video. We stumbled on it one night, and then it turned out it was in rotation. And I called all these friends of mine in the business and go, the Peter Gabriel thing's on again tonight. You got to watch it. You got to watch it. And slowly these phone calls are, what's it on? And it turned out it was on Family Channel. Well, being a new dad with 2 young kids, I had Family Channel. And being that my all my rock and roll buddies were not in that condition, none of them had Family Channel. And they go, oh, guess can't watch it.
So now you're Foley. You don't even have a first name anymore. So let's hear what you have to say about all this.
I think my favorite concert experience is one that I worked. It was Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. And while I enjoy her music, the thing that really hammered it home for me was the fact that the band was A, fantastically nice. B, they all did everything that every audio engineer wants you to do. The guitar amps were small and kicked back, so they were faced at the back of their heads, not at the front of house guy's nose. The drummer played with dynamics. When he needed loud, he played loud. When he didn't, he played quiet. The band was just really fantastic. The horn players really were able to use their instruments and their mics as a combined instrument, and they were just a fantastic group to see and work with, and everything was just easy and beautiful. And it was a lovely night outside, and we were out on the South Plaza of the Kennedy Center under the stars. It was lovely.
It's so nice to see a show outside, not fighting with any sort of internal acoustics. I just love a festival or an outdoor show. It's always, for me, it's always the best.
Yeah, I had a great time. A show I worked was the 40th anniversary of Woodstock, and overall the show was not good. Some of the bands were real prima donnas and really couldn't cut it anymore. They had no place being prima donnas. They were.
Is that the one where they burned everything down at the end?
No.
Is the other
But
Woodstock?
two of the bands blew me away. Levon Helm Band and Mountain. They were unbelievable. And Leslie West was, I was running the stage, and Leslie West was just the nicest guy. And I mean, they went out there and played their asses off. And
what kind of mic did they use in the cowbell for Mountain?
Yeah, I don't know. I could tell you how we pushed the carts around.
Right? Yeah.
In the middle of the set, they stopped, and all the guitarists from all the other bands came out on stage, and they made like a canopy with their guitars, like a tunnel. And Leslie West and his girlfriend walked down the tunnel, and they got married on stage in the middle of their set.
Wow.
Married by the mayor of White Lake, which is where Bethel Woods Performing Arts Center is and where Woodstock was. And then as soon as the wedding was over, he went back to his guitar amp and they played Mississippi Queen. It was great.
Sounds really good.
And Levon Helm was also just blew me away.
I saw, no, I didn't see Levon Helm. I'm sorry. Nathan, what did you see?
Well, it's like a series of concerts. Like my first introduction was Queen, the night at the Opera Tour. And that was impressive because of the stereo spread of the guitar and pianos and stuff, and just the overall delivery they had with their presentation was just really amazing. And it was my first concert, so that might have had something to do with it. But the one that really struck me is Dave Edmonds, and I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he was at a little 500-seat club down in San Diego, and it was just so rocking. Like I was like 10 feet from the stage, and the mix, they had 850 cabinets on the left and right and all this stuff. And it was just like right in your face, impressive, splayed out, great spread of instruments. Everything was clear, but it wasn't loud at all. And that was the most impressive part about that. And then David Bowie, Tin Machine. I don't know if you remember that. That was one of his little side projects with Reeves Gabriel on guitar and Soupy Sales' son and Sons on bass and drums. But what's impressive about that was the low end kick. It was out of proportion, but it was just, God, you just stood there and you just felt the thump against you. And then the guitar was on top of it. And the mix was just like unbelievable. It was a like high noise density sound, but at the same time, everything was clear and in your face. And then the third one, or the fourth one, was the Peter Gabriel concert, The Secret World. I actually saw that early on, and I mean, what can you say? It was the perfect meeting of emotion and delivery and presentation, and that he took you on a journey from beginning to end. And then when that concert was over, I was exhausted, but in a good way.
He was ahead of his time.
Definitely was ahead of his time. And just the structuring of the set would be you'd sit here and you'd hear the bass part, and they were really good at placing the bass part in the mix so that it wasn't like just bland bass comes out. Bass was right here, guitar was right here, and then they'd circle around in reverse, and the guitars and bass would switch. And then the keyboards were just, I don't know. It was such an emotional experience for me.
Did you happen to notice where he was mixing from?
Yeah, that was the weirdest part.
I think he was on the side, like in a corner. It was a weird
He
spot,
was-
but you could be anywhere, I suppose.
Well, I guess, but if the stage is circular, but the main stage faces you,
It's like a
he was
dumbbell,
mixing
right?
over on
Round,
the
round
front-
with a centerpiece.
Yeah, he was mixing over on the right side,
Mhm.
but down under. And to be honest with you, I don't know how he did it.
He probably had some guests, not guests, he probably had some crew guys wandering around from time to time. And I'm sure they did a lot
Something
of
like
rehearsals
that.
to get it right. Yeah. It
But
was,
he just owned the stage, and he sang and stuff like that. And I don't know, I was just blown away.
yeah, so, I mean, it's even great to watch on DVD. I would love to have seen it live, but it was great to watch on DVD.
Yeah.
So then, what about the worst possible show? Let's see. I had to say worst thing. Well, there's been ones that have been super disappointing, even though I really wanted to see them. I saw Stevie Wonder recently, and I thought, well, I better go see him before he's too old or dies or whatever. And I thought, okay, I got to go see the show, and I did, and it was awful. He wasn't touring with a rig. He had brought in, it was a local production, I believe. It was feeding back. There was all sorts of instruments not in the mix at all. It was a bad show overall. He didn't play well. It was almost like he had some guest musicians with him and things like this. And it was just nothing like I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be hit after hit after hit after hit. It was more like a couple of, he would do a little medley of hits, and then a whole bunch of songs I never heard before, and then a talk for hours, and really disappointing. But so yeah, overall, everything was bad. I can't remember a time when I saw a show where the sound was just the sound was bad. There wasn't, deafening or distorted or anything like that. I do remember seeing Judas Priest, I think, at one point, and they were really, really distorted, incredibly distorted, to the point where I guess they were just using distortion to try and make the show sound louder, or they didn't have enough PA or whatever it was. I just couldn't believe that that's the way they would allow it to be, allow the sound to be that distorted and that awful. And I guess those would be the two highlights of terrible sounds. And a lot of those things kind of encouraged me to not go and see shows. As I thought, I don't want to remember a terrible show like that after spending a lot of money on a ticket.
I think that
with it.
Distortion, trying to make it seem louder, is what may have been common at one time, because I had exactly the same experience with Yes. It sounded territo
It could have just been distortion. I rented, or the company I worked for rented supplementary PA to Motorhead for their Bomber appearance here in Toronto, and I got tapped to pick up the PA afterwards, and I got down there about, I don't know, 20 minutes before the end, and I went in, and it just sounded like this. That was the show. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, Mac.
No, I was interrupting Andrew. So, it's.
No, not at all. That was it. I picked my two worst. So
Can
Mac,
I
you said Yes
introduce,
wasn't good. Go ahead.
A topic swerve before we start, wallowing in the man that really sucked thing. Is I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about, like, a good topic would be acts that you mixed that you didn't know who they were, or you just happened to be the sound man of the day or whatever, and something came along and you went, wow, that's like it kind of blew your mind, or you just go, wow, I'm so glad that I actually got to do that.
It's related. It's qualified. It's one of your favorite shows that you saw. You just happen to be mixing. So Ike, you're going to tell us, I assume, which band you didn't know anything
Dave's
about.
hot to go. I think Dave just had a moment there. So let's.
Well, yeah, I'm going to tie this again into the whole Canadian thing. And Ike, you said this earlier about Schitt's Creek. I didn't know what Schitt's Creek was, but they were coming to Constitution Hall here in DC and doing the live show, right? It was before the last season had even aired. I don't even know if they had recorded it yet. but we had been doing a lot of these live podcast shows. So I just thought it was another podcast show. I had no clue what it was. And then in They All Walk, and I'm like, dude, it's Dan Levy and Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara. And I'm like, holy cow. And I had not seen the show. But their live show was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. They were all so nice to work with. Unbelievable. And from that, I then came back, and myself and my wife have seen every one of those shows. And it's still an unbelievable TV show for what they made. I'm very shocked and surprised by it, but I had no clue what it was going into it. I was just like, oh, great. Another live podcast. Whoop-de-doo. I was wrong.
Over the years, I mean, I've just, for doing festival gigs or whatever, I did Solomon Burke. I had no idea who Solomon Burke was. And I still barely know who Solomon Burke was, but I believe he had some connection with Sam Cooke. Like they worked together or something like that. And, I'm doing a, 3-day Canada Day thing outside at Harborfront downtown. And 2 p.m. Solomon Burke, whatever. Oh, band comes up, sets up. And there it is. It's like, like the original R&B stuff, like, the players are great and it's outdoors and everything. And it's like, wow, and I'm sure that there's been more of those than I can even remember the names of. And another one was Lalomi Washburn. She was one of Chaka Khan's backup singers, and she put a record out or something like that. And she was a guest in a club here in Toronto called the Blue Note. And, I just happened to, I'd sub in there once in a while and the regular guy couldn't make it. And I just happened to be mixing that night. I was, both of those were back in the 80s when I was more likely to be mixing something. But yeah, there's probably others. There's probably been others that come to mind, but those two just were I'd been thinking about the other, top of mind. So over to someone else.
I was lucky enough to do a corporate show where the name just slipped my mind. You'll help me with this. Like if I had a rocket launcher, who's that guy?
Bruce Coburn.
Bruce Coburn was just doing a solo thing by himself with his acoustic guitar. And I knew of him. I certainly knew all of his songs, never worked with him or never seen him live. But he came in and said, how you doing? Oh yeah, my name's Bruce. I love these guys who obviously everybody knows who they are. They go, hi, I'm Bruce. So I said, is your sound guy here? Oh, well, didn't bring anybody with me. Hopefully you don't mind. No, I don't mind at all. The most amazing acoustic guitar sound. It just sounded lush and beautiful right off the bat. And he's a wonderful, wonderful guitar player and a great singer and just a super humble, nice guy. And it was in one of these intimate settings in a small theater. And I was just like, you could do no wrong. You just push the faders up and it just sounds incredible. So it was a lot of fun to do something like that when you have a great artist that really surprises you. It's something else for sure.
You know what? I don't get to mix a lot of shows, but one show I did mix was a corporate back in the 90s. It was David Crosby. And this was shortly after, maybe 6 months after his liver transplant. And the show is all the doctors, liver doctors and stuff like that worked on him. And along with that, he had his doctor there that actually cured him and whatever, revitalized him. But he had his son on guitar and just unbelievable harmonies. Like it was one of those things where, I'm an average mixer, but it was super easy. You just pushed it, let it go, and they managed their volume. And it was so impressive that they could, he was 60, I don't know, 60, something like that. And he was hitting his harmonies perfectly throughout the song, and everything was gorgeous. And it didn't, thankfully, it didn't take a lot to mix it.
Yeah,
But,
when you get to work with a great artist who's not a dick,
yeah.
and they just play and it just magic happens.
Well, magic happened.
It doesn't really, it doesn't really take that much input from you because they're just good, and they,
Yeah.
you make it louder, and it's good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I hate to shamelessly self-plug my own work, but if you guys haven't read my latest road story on Pro Sound Web, it actually is about working with the band when I was very young and just thinking, oh, I can't mix harmonies. It's just something I can't do. I just don't know how to mix harmonies. And then this was matinee day, and these guys said, "Hey, we got this Crosby, Stills and Nash cover thing we do. Can we go?" Sure, get up. And 2 minutes later, there were like harmonies coming out of my PA system. I was like, it's not me. And so, yeah, like when people can actually sing, it's very impressive, So
It's always a story of, people can't play or sing or do anything nowadays. It was always better in the past, sort of thing. There is a little bit of truth to that, especially in vocal stuff, but there's certainly, of course, there's tons of great harmony bands these days. And but there was something about it when you watch those old old Saturday Night Live things, or old shows from the 70s where they couldn't fix the vocals after the fact. It would all have to be live. And something really special about that, because that nobody had a chance to go in and fix it after the fact, and it still sounds incredible. It blows me away.
You look like you have something to say, Dave.
Unfortunately, I think they probably can go back and fix it on Saturday Night Live.
Really?
I've never worked on Saturday Night Live, but I've worked a lot on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and they go back and redo that all the time.
But not in the
But in the
70s. They wouldn't have done that in the 70s.
70s and 80s, a lot of things went out just as it was.
Yeah,
And
well,
people were-
a lot of it was lip sync though, or live
Yeah, I mean-
vocal track. Though.
I mean,
but that's
band-
what I loved about Saturday Night Live, is it was actually live. Every other show would do a lip sync cover version or something. At least they did it live.
The Tonight Show is always live, but it's live in the sense that it was taped live, but it broadcasts it at 11:30 at night, and it tapes at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's not live.
Would they do it again if it's screwed up for some reason? Would they start again?
If the artist screwed up the song, they would stop and do the song over again in front of the audience. But the entire thing is recorded in Pro Tools, and there's a music mixer who goes back and remixes the Pro Tools.
Because I remember Saturday Night Live when Elvis Costello came up and started it on the song they told him to play, and then he just completely dumped it, and then went into, I forget what song it was, but that was the time Saturday Night Live was live, because you couldn't do that. I mean, you couldn't stop it and start it if it was a tape.
Of course. And what's her name tearing up the picture of the Pope? I mean, they would have edited all that out if it wasn't live.
Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor, that's the one.
Yeah.
And where is she now?
She's interesting enough. She's in mental illness land.
No,
is that a fact? Oh, that's sad.
She's an advocate for it, and she's now come out and talked about all her problems, and just the separation between the character you saw and what she was miles apart. She's kind of interesting. I like her better when she's honest about it than the clandestine kind of spooky thing that she did.
Yeah, no doubt. Foley, are you a live mixer? I'm sorry, I don't know what your history is.
I mean, a little bit of everything, but mostly I do the systems engineering, comms, that sort of thing. A2 world. Certainly have mixed shows, but I think.
Did you ever see something that just really surprised you? You weren't expecting an amazing show, and it was?
I mean, I'm constantly surprised by shows.
That they happen at all. That anybody even shows up.
I'm more kind of surprised by shows going terribly than when they go well these days, because it seems like most shows I work on go pretty well. I think the last one that I really can like ID that went abjectly horribly was a show where the artist had composed a special work for the 10th anniversary of a group, and they had a symphony on stage and his little pop band on stage, and he calls me out on stage as the A2 system tech, and it's like, can we get rid of that feedback in the monitor wedges? And I run off stage to the monitor engineer, and he's like, no, that's part of the music. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure the composer would know if it was part of the music.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say about those kinds of things. Terrible. Does anybody else have a story about a great or terrible show that they saw? Still have a few more minutes. No.
Well, I have one that actually combines both that topic and the, you never know who's going to end up at the underneath your fader kind of thing. As I've actually written a piece about this, and so far my editor won't publish it. It's one of the 5 worst shows I've ever done. And the artist was Tony Bennett, and it was it had absolutely nothing to do with him, his personality, his excellent abilities, or anything else that made the show such a terrible show. It was everything to do with the event planner, whose first and last name I still remember, even though it was 1982. And just so many other things that just anything that could possibly be screwed up on this show was screwed up. And the punchline of the whole thing was, when it was all over, after just one tribulation after another, I hear this, her name was Lola, she was a showgirl. And I look up, and the woman who was the event organizer was the leader of the dance band for after. It was a corporate, and she was the leader of the dance band for the dance music for all these drunken car dealers after this just incredible train wreck of a show. And I realized that her entire motivation for everything that happened in the lead up to this disaster was basically to get her band out there, and get a gig. She availed herself of the pharmaceuticals of the day to sort of keep her calm and everything like that. And I mean, I felt just terrible after this show. And finally I decided, I need to go and apologize to Tony Bennett for this catastrophe. And after her first set, while we were still striking, I went over to her at the bar, and I said to her, I addressed her by name, and I said, if you could just tell me what room that Mr. Bennett's in, I would really like to go up and apologize to him in person. And she looked at me and she goes, "Who are you?" And I go, "My name's Ike Zimbel. I'm with this sound company, and we've been working together all fucking day." It's just like, and that wasn't quite it. This guy from the hotel comes over and goes, "What happened here tonight? I understand that something didn't happen quite the way it should, and you didn't reach out to me and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I really need to know about these things. And went on and on and on like this for at some length, gave me his card. And about 6 months later, the company I was with was doing a Sharon, Lois, and Bram kids show in there. And I said to the guy that was mixing, Stuart, you got to call this guy. Like, if you're going into that hotel, you got to call this guy. He is like the guy. You got to talk to him. And he goes, okay. And I bump into him half an hour later. I go, how'd it go? He goes, I called the guy. He denied any knowledge of any connection with anything to do with any show in the building at any fucking time. And I was like, all right. You know?
Oh man.
So yeah,
Early 80s, that's when you could get Tony Bennett for 25 grand.
probably it was literally in that lull before his career kind of exploded again.
Yeah, because I did a gig with him in Monte Carlo in 88, which was also before the unplugged thing happened, which brought him back to the world. And he was fantastic. It was for a insurance company, and it was their top 50 salespeople in the world and their wives, and they'd never had entertainment at a meeting before. And they came back to the ballroom for cocktails, and the lights went down, and Spotlight came up on Tony Bennett center stage and said, "Hello, I'm Tony Bennett." And 100 jaws hit the floor. They'd never had entertainment at all. And he just blew them away. It was with the Ralph Sharon trio. And it was a fantastic show. And then I had him a few years later where he tried to get out of the gig because they had booked him when he was cheap, but suddenly he wasn't cheap and he didn't want to do the gig.
Those darn contracts.
Exactly. But we had him for AARP. And then the most recent one was I worked on the when he did the duet show with Lady Gaga.
Oh yes,
which
was a great show.
That was a great show. It was a great show to work on.
Oh wow!
I've never seen so many Neumann mics in one place in my life. The entire orchestra was mic'd with U87s. It was a sea of U87s.
He did one with her at the Kennedy Center Concert Hall on his birthday, and so we got to like come out and sing happy birthday to him and wheel a cake on stage.
Yeah, he was great, and because he's been great every time I worked with him. And I was very happily surprised that Lady Gaga was also great. I mean, not only could she really sing but she was nice. I mean, my little RF setup was right next to her tent dressing room right off stage because most of the show was about her changing costumes. But they were both fantastic on that.
I was thinking, talking about a show, that you weren't expecting to be great or didn't know what you're getting into. You guys ever heard of Bela Fleck?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Flecktones?
The Flecktones.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know what they were.
The only banjo you want to listen to.
And that's right. The only time you'd ever want to listen to a banjo. So, went to that show. It blew me away. I'd never seen anything like that. And the great thing about it was a great show, first of all, but they happened to be staying at the same hotel that we were staying at. And they were down in the bar, all of them. Down in the bar, and I walk in. And, hey, Bella. He's like, "Hey, how you doing? How would you think? Did it sound okay? Because I explained, I was in this other band or working with this other band. So, oh yeah, well, you're a sound guy. So did it sound okay? Using this new Roland thing. I'm not sure if I liked it. And you hear him talking to Future Man, talking to all the guys, and they're all really humble, nice, down to earth kind of people. And it just makes all the difference. You go, well, I like them even more now, even though they're great musicians. They're also humble. They're also, they'll just talk to you like any regular person. And it was a treat, a great memory.
Robert
So we're getting
Cray was
close
like
to the
that.
end.
I was saying Robert Cray was like that.
Yeah, down
He
to
played
earth.
Humphreys and just came out, ripped it up, and then afterwards he was like in the bar, and it was like it was just abstract. You're just like, what are you doing here? But he and his band were super nice and just delivered the goods.
Brandy Carlisle, same way. Absolutely amazing. What a great show. And so down to earth and humble. I was amazed.
I had a show where Robert Plant came in with Alison Krauss, I think, and he spent the entirety of the time that he wasn't on stage hanging out backstage with all the crew, talking about the DC punk rock scene and wanting to like talk about all the little clubs he used to go in when he was touring through in his youth.
I remember he got thrown out of the Bayou for drinking after hours.
Oh, he was very, very happy to talk about the Bayou.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great stories, guys. I'm gonna probably wrap it up here. Any last thoughts from anybody before I try to roll this last thing?
Yeah, I like consoles with a separate control surface and DSP. DSP at the stage, control surface at front of house.
All right, we'll do that one next time. Hopefully, Brian will be back next time to host us. But thanks everybody for coming.
But
Really
Mac, what
appreciate it.
happens if you have to reboot?
The A2 hits the switch.
It's kind of like the story, the argument between self-powered PAs and unpowered PAs. And anyway, topic for next time. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to roll this thing here, and we will everybody wave and say goodbye. And go.
Yeah, well, you know, that's like just your opinion, man.
Yeah, don't click the stop button.